Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Let's look at the next thing that I make with this Farm Friends fabric. Okay, for our second project, we did the quilt. Now I'm gonna just show a fun and quick little pillow cover. Might do two because yeah, I have four animal blocks, so I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna do two pillows. Let's see. Let's just start with one. Let me show you how I'm going to approach this. So I want to go in and I'm going to cut out all four of these animal blocks, I think. Or, yeah, I'm going to cut them all out. I'm going to cut all four out. All right. So, y'all, I'm just making this up. First thing I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and trim off the pink edges, and I want to keep them in as long strips as possible. So I'm going to start here, because I might try to use these. They're so tiny, though. I don't know if that's going to work. Let's see. And I know this is long, but I really just want to show, sometimes it's just nice to see the process of like how someone works, right? Especially if you're new to trying these different things. And so that's really what this video is mostly about. So this is not a perfectly scripted tutorial or anything. It's just literally how I do a lot of my sewing and creating of things is, you know, I just look at fabric, I pull it, I think about what it could be, and then I like to just get in there and give things a whirl. You know, with my apparel sewing, I do, you know, work from a lot of patterns, but when I'm doing these just, you know, super simple patchwork, quilting, home decor kind of sewing pattern projects, you know, these are often patternless things for me. I do measuring and sketching and just envisioning. And yeah, so we're going to keep this rolling. I will try to put in timestamps for folks that just want to skip to see, you know, the end of what, you know, these things are turning into. Okay, so I will do that. So now I'm going to go in and I'm just going to cut along each of these edges to pull out, you know, the squares and rectangles of the animals. Okay, so I should end up with 4 different portraits, animal portraits. So already while I'm doing this, I'm thinking of a couple things. For the sake of sewing, I'm going to turn for sure one of these into a pillow cover, and I might do 2, but I'm already seeing here these could easily be turned into, you could do a set of 4, like a mini quilt panels, and put them on the wall as like little wall hangings, right? Frame them, frame all 4. You could even, you know, put them in a frame instead of quilting them, but you certainly could turn these into mini quilts and just have this like in the room if you're doing room decor, including the quilt, the pillow, and then these. That would be absolutely adorable, don't you think? Maybe I'll do 2 like that and 2 pillows. I don't know, but I kind of have another thing that I want to do. The other thing I'm thinking, well, let me just stop, because this is what happens to me. It's like I see these kind of things and then I can think up like 10 projects. Let's move forward with the pillow before I get too distracted. I'm going to go for, I mean, I love all these animals, but I think for the fabrics that I'm going to use with this, because I still have leftover of that purple, and then I'm going to use the blue floral. I think I'm going to do these two as pillows, and then I'm going to do these two as something else. I'll think of that later while I'm sewing. So as I come here, I just got a pre-made pillow cover. I like these because even the insert, you know, has a little zipper. So if you want to change the filling in there, you can. But this is a, if you want to stuff it more, this is a polyfiber pillow, just a, you know, from the big box stores. I got a twin pack of these. And so the dimensions of this, I think these are 18-inch square. Yeah. Well, 17-inch square pillows. Okay. So I'm already seeing here, I'm going to see what I'm doing. I want to frame it. Okay. So just like with the quilt, I want to sew on borders here. And I think I'm going to do the pink, and then I'm going to do a print, probably with the blue floral with this. And then with this one, I will do the pink and then this brown floral. That's what I think I'm going to do. And then it'll be a matching set of pillows with this. Though now that I look at that, do I want the pink and pink? Maybe. No, because I like that these two are the same size. I mean, you could make, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. Stick with the plancherie. So if I come in here, I'm going to get my tape measure now. So I'm going to do the simple pillows where it's just like the envelope back. You could do them where you put the zipper in, right? I'm going to give myself some extra. So I'm going to put my tape measure at the halfway mark here. Then I'm going to come here and see. Yeah. So that is at 4. So I need to build this up to be 4.5 inches to be safe. So yeah, I'm going to use 1/4 inch seams though. So I'm going to just start piecing this. Let me go do my math now. So just so you guys know, my little process of math, what I do, right? And see, this is kind of an offset square. So I'm going to square that up to begin with. These blocks were not printed to be true squares, and I need my thing to be square. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to square these up. Really, this one needs to be squared up. So I'm going to square that up to, it looks like it's going to end up being 10.5 inches by the time I square that up. And so if I do my math, if I want it to be 14.5 inches and this is 10.5 inches, I need to build up about 5 inches, at least a 5-inch width to be careful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do those 1.5-inch strips again. And see, that's why I'm not sure if I want to do pink, because the pink against the pink. Maybe I'll flip that. But anyway, I wish that was not so skinny because I would sew that on there first. I think I might do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to play around with these on there. It's going to be a really small border, but it's going to break up that solid for me, which I feel like I kind of want. So I'm going to frame this one in this. Then I'm going to do the pink, and then I'm going to do the pink and brown. Okay. And then, so I'm going to stitch these on first, and then I'll see how much of the pink and brown I need to add on to get that cover at the right width. And then for this one, I don't think am I going to have enough? I don't think I'm going to have enough of this. So I'm just going to do the pink and then the blue. And so they'll be different, but similar concepts, all right? All right, let me get this squared up and then I'm gonna start sewing and then I'll come back. And maybe I'm gonna film the sewing of this one through so you can see all the steps, since I didn't show all the detailed steps in the quilt, mainly because the quilt is just, it gets big. But this will be easier for me to film, so I'm gonna film that. And again, remember, I'll be putting in the timestamps because I know this is gonna be a long video, but it's long on purpose because I did want to do more of kind of a workshop style video using this, just again to kind of share how I work through coming up with these things. And yeah, all right, let's get to the next step. And actually I realized maybe I should show you, I think I showed you how to square up in the quilt, but just to be safe, I'm gonna go ahead and show this as well. So I just have this one edge lined up here, but I have this amount like peeking, and I'm just using my grid on the cutting mat as my guide to straighten out all these lines. So now I know this line is straight. So I'm going to put that there, and then I'm going to come in here, and you can see here, that's where that's sticking out. I'm lining that straight up with my black line. And I'm just cutting off that little bit. And it's just little bits that are coming off, but these little bits will prevent your center piece from really looking square, which I want to make sure it does. I'm going to slide this over a teensy bit. Okay. And I'm trying to keep as much as I can, so I don't want to, you know, just go in and overcut, because I want to keep the piece as big as I can, but I do want it square. So now I have this. So it's just a little extra step, but you can see how this looks square now. So as I build out around my frame will also be square, all right? And then let's just double check my cow while I have it here. And she already was looking really good. Yep, she's already good. For some reason the llama was not. So, all right, I'm gonna get to sewing. Let's start with our llama. Let me come back around so we're not sideways. So what I'm going to do, I think two of them are wider than the other. Just make sure. And I'm not gonna worry about that, because what I'm gonna do is fix that once I've sewn them, okay? So once I've sewn them on, I'm gonna trim them all down so that they match the length, the width of the smallest one. Now this is a longer piece, so I might be able to get two. And I'm gonna continue with the log cabin piecing. So I might be able to get two out of this one. Yep. So that'll help, and then I'll come in and I'll just find whichever one is the widest there. All right, so I'm gonna do this one step by step real quick, including showing the sewing, just in case anyone needs to do that. I'm running out of pins over here. So I got those. Remember, I like to come a little bit above the edge so I can square that off nicely. I'm gonna put in my pins. Turn this around instead of twisting my arms. I'm going to leave this extra hanging off. I'm going to go stitch this down. Then, yeah, let's take you to the sewing machine. Okay, so we're at the machine. Again, I'm lining it up with this 1/4 inch mark. You can put a piece of tape here to bring it all the way down so you can see that further, especially if you're new. You can also use your 1/4 inch foot attachment, which I sometimes do, but since I'm moving back and forth between sewing 1/4 inch and the regular 5/8, because I'm doing some apparel sewing in this video as well, I'm not changing my foot. But if I was just doing a quilt, I would put my 1/4 inch foot attachment on, and then I never have to make any guesses about if my seams are even. All right, so I'm going to do my back stitch there so that when I press that open, it doesn't come undone. And then I'm just going to stitch down. Remember to take your pins out before you sew over them. You don't want to break your needle. You don't want any needle bits flying into your eyeballs as it breaks. Okay, it's not worth it. And then I'm going to go just past this and I'm going to do a back stitch. And I think I told you at the beginning of the video, but this is just a regular universal needle that I'm sewing with. And I'm just using the regular stitch width and stitch length on the machine, 3.4 and 2.4. Okay, so I did a little back stitch, and I do the back stitching here on these just because when you go to press that open, sometimes if you don't do the back stitch, this will kind of come undone, and you don't want that. So I'm going to take this to the iron and press that seam open. I'm not going to take it to the ironing board, but I'm just going to press that open real good, and then we'll go back to the cutting table and we'll trim these off. All right, it looks like I didn't record me cutting this off, so I'll do that in the next one. But anyway, I went to the iron, pressed the seam open, and I came and I pressed it from the top also to make that sure that was really straight. And then this was that long piece. I went in with my clear ruler, cut off the extra right here and up there. I'll do that in the next step so you can see that. And I think I showed it already in the quilt. But anyway, I'm going to take this excess that I cut off, and that's going to go on the next piece. I'm going to make sure I leave a little bit hanging over on each edge. And same thing, I'm going to pin that in place. Let me move that up so you can see. So I'm going to pin that in place. And I'm just going to repeat the same thing at the sewing machine. Remember, again, I'm going to take you through all 4 of these sides just for anyone who really needs to see that. I will be putting in the timestamps for those that want to skip to the final pillow assembling. But I'm going to go ahead and stitch that down. But I wanted to put in this one tip when I teach children, especially, but anyone that's new and still a little bit nervous at the sewing machine. It's a good thing to come in with a marking pencil, or I'm going to just do it really lightly with my pen. So yeah, one thing you can do is come in and just kind of line this up and just give yourself a line to stitch on. I don't want to press too hard because this is an ink pen. But you see, you can give yourself a line. Don't do this with an ink pen like I just did. Do it with a, a fabric marker with the disappearing ink, or one of the chalk pencils or something like that, all right? This isn't going to harm anything, but I don't want you to be in the habit of using ink pens on your fabric, all right? Let's go back to the sewing machine and get this sewn. So I have my little line that I drew. Just stitching. You see how that is helpful to have that visual line to sew on, again, especially if you're a beginner. And if you have a machine that has a speed control, slow the machine down so that you're comfortable with the speed. There's no shame in going slower. It's not a race. Do what you need to do to ensure that you can have nice straight stitches. So I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to go press that seam open, and then we'll go to the cutting board to trim off the excess. All right, so we got that next piece sewn on. I'm going to come here, lining my raw edge up with the black grid line on my cutting mat. I'm going to go in, cut off the excess, and that basically will square it off nicely. All right, so the same thing to the side. Come in a little bit. And I'm gonna need to trim some of this off anyway because my other strips are not as wide, but we'll do that after we get this next one on, and then we can see how we need to cut the other ones down before we put on the final one. So this is the next widest. Which one? Well, these are pretty similar. So we'll go with this one, and maybe we'll use this because this is also wider. So this won't have me trimming off too much. That's good. So I'm gonna go with the widest edge again. Okay, so do the same thing again. We're gonna get in here, get this pinned and stitched, ironed and cut. Or I should say trimmed. Oops, I forgot to take my pens out. Don't do that. Don't do what I just did. Don't do what I just did. Take those pens out. Okay, so now that I see how skinny that is, I'm going to go in and trim these other two down. So I can see here that this is lining up with the third line. This is lining up with the third line on my ruler. So I'm going to have that third line sitting on my seam here. 1, 2, 3. So this is the excess that needs to be cut off so that they end up being the same width. Yep, that looks good. And then I'm going to do the same thing here as I cut off that extra. So I'm going to have the 1, 2, 3rd orange line meeting up with my seam, which is a little bit hard to see. There we go. There we go. So this one is cutting off a little bit less. Yeah. All right. So now I feel like that looks bigger. I'm going to double check that. Oh, I think I cut that one too small. Well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to trim these. So, oh, I see, because this was smaller at the bottom. All right, let me redo that. Let me redo that. Yeah, it was crooked at the bottom. Down here it's a little less. So I'm going to come in at the second line. I'm going to do the second line so I can get these all even, which I think is what I did there. But this one is not, and then that other one needs to be. So this is going to be a really small frame, but it's at least something to break that up, right? And this is just me trying to incorporate this. If you're using different fabrics, you know, you could skip this and just do the pink solid if you are using this fabric line and not be quite so tedious with this. I had this set in my head and I gotta go with it now. It's gonna be a really small little strip, but it is gonna break. I didn't want to have that solid right next to so much solid. I don't want to have to redo that. There we go. All right. Now I'm gonna come in and take that off. And I'm gonna pin this last strip, and same thing, I'm gonna use the widest part. And what I need to do, because with that other one I got into a skinny section, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this so I don't accidentally use the skinny part. And then I'm gonna use the full width here. I'm gonna use the full width here. There we go, that looks mostly wide. I'm gonna pin that and stitch it. All right, friends, so got that seam pressed open. Now I'm gonna come and do the same thing and trim this down. This is gonna be a tiny little strip of this floral, but it's enough to make me happy to separate that solid. And then I'm going to proceed with adding on the 1.5 inch pink strips like I did for the quilt. And then I will remeasure to decide how much of the plum floral I need to add to this one. And then I'll show you what that looks like at the end, all right? Okay, I'm back now. I got all 4 of the pieces fully framed out. Just repeating exactly what I showed you in the video. Just going around, putting the 4 strips of in this case, the solid pink, and then repeating that with the floral. So this is my rooster. Well, my chicken. That's my chicken lady. And here's the other smaller one, which is the pig. I'm not exactly sure. Well, I think I know what I'm going to do with them, but I'm going to wait. Now, you could, of course, use these also to make pillows. You know, just have a smaller pillow insert. So this one, for example, is looking like it's 14 by 17 or 16.5. So you could create your own pillow form for something like this. You could trim it down so that it's square and just find the appropriate size, you know, pillow insert to use those with. Same thing. This is 14 and same 16.5. So those are my 2 smaller ones. But I've thought of something else that I want to do with those. So I'm going to put those aside. Probably going to have to break this video up again because I do want to show you this other project. But let's look at the 2 that I'm going to use for the rest of this video for the pillow forms. And so here is my llama. Let's get her in to the full frame. Beautiful. And so here, this was tedious. But I do feel like that makes a difference, having that little bit of brightness before adding the solid pink. So I like it. I think it was worth the effort. And then here is my cow. All right. So I've decided that I'm going to align these, and then I'm going to top stitch or maybe even quilt it. Kind of want to quilt these now. Kind of want to quilt them. Let me think. and I'll be back to let you know. Okay, so I decided to just line them, and then I'm just going to stitch them without quilting them. I will do, because I realized I have another quilted pillow project in the queue. So you'll see that then. But I'm going to go ahead. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out just some, I'm going to use this actually. This is just some, off-white cotton fabric. But you can use a cotton muslin. You can use, I would just use something, kind of solid. I wouldn't use a print. So I'm going to do that, stitch it down, and then I'll show you how I'm going to make the pillow backs. So I'm showing you here, I'm just laying these on top, and these are going to be squared off before I actually attach the pillow envelope backs to these. But I am cutting the lining fabric just a little bit bigger than the, I'm going to just leave it a bit bigger, and then I'll trim everything down when I go to attach the back. And I'm going to line the back pieces also. I feel like it just makes the pillows a little bit more solid, especially when you're using this lighter weight fabric. It's fine for pillowcases, but I feel like when you have these kind of pillows that you're taking pillow forms in and out, it I don't know, I feel like it just makes it a little more sturdy. And so I typically will do that so that it's a double ply fabric. If I'm using home decor weight fabric for them, sometimes I don't line them. But even then, I don't know. I like to line things. All right, let me go do some stitching. So I'm just sticking some pins in just to hold it in place. And I will take you to the sewing machine just to show you this first one, how I'm gonna stitch it. You can stitch it however you want. You don't even have to stitch it. You can just, you don't even have to do like extra stitching. You technically don't even have to stitch it. I could come over and layer on the back pieces now and turn this into a pillow, but I want to outline stitch the piecing. I'm gonna do that. And I feel like too, then when you're washing it, this seems to lay a little flat. So yeah, I got that pinned, and let's go over to the sewing machine. Now I will say, depending on the fabric and just your mood, you could do some decorative stitching here. That could be pretty. I'm not going to do any decorative stitching. I'm just going to stitch this down. I'm going to start here, and I'm using the inner edge of this presser foot as my guide, and I'm just going to go in and stitch. You could stitch in the ditch, but I actually want to kind of frame this. You could stitch in the ditch, but I just want to kind of frame this here. So we're going to do our needle down, presser foot up, turn 90 degrees, and continue around. And to me, these are just those little extra things you can do to increase the quality of your sewn and quilted goods. And I personally like the look of top stitching. I feel like if you go into, if you go and you have a look at, higher quality, non-mass produced stuff, I like to kind of inspect those things and see how they're being constructed. That's what I did very early on when I used to sew a lot of clothing, things that were new to me. I would inspect things that were in my closet and at the store, see how things were being finished, and just kind of model that in my own home sewing. And so that's just the little extra steps that I like to do personally. But of course, you don't have to do any of these things. I also feel like when you go to wash your things, they just tend to hold up better and last better over time as well. So you can see I just, you know, eyeball, pivot, and turn. Now, again, I've been sewing for a long time. I have kind of a feeling for these things. If you need to put little chalk marks on for yourself, especially if you're kind of new to this, do it. Do what you need to do to, you know, make this easier for you. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this other guide here for this edge, and I'm going to stitch into the pink. And basically what I'm doing is I'm using this to stitch down those seams that I pressed open. A 1/4 inch seam is a small seam, and again, for something like a pillow that's going to get used and washed a lot, I do like the idea of coming in and stitching down those seams, which is part of why I originally wanted to quilt it, because of course once you quilt it, you are basically securing that in that way. But I think this top stitching around is going to be a nice alternative for that as well. And you can see here, if you were quilting it, right, you could do the same kind of like just outline stitching, just with quilt batting instead of lining, just lining to do some quilting. And again, things aren't going to be exactly perfect. I am a human making this, not an electronic machine with precision stitching and all those kinds of things, right? It's kind of the charm also of something that is handmade, but you want it to be quality still. But, you know, there'll be little imperfections in the straightness of your stitch and all those little things that nobody but you will ever actually notice. So don't be so hard on yourself. And I'm just back tacking to overlap there. And then I'm going to do a final, well, actually I'm going to do 2 more rounds of stitching. I'm going to stitch now onto the purple. And I feel like I'm going to start like this. It's just, I like to have the left presser foot. Actually, that kind of threw me off. I mean the right. I like to have it to the right. Kind of threw me off with the other one. There we go. Well, actually. All right. All right, so I'm going to do this final stitch now into the purple, the plum fabric. Stitching that down. And then after I finish this, I'm just going to go in a bit from the edge, but making sure that that is kind of basted together so that when I attach the backing portion, I don't have any shifting in the lining, and this pillow top will behave as one piece of fabric. That's the only reason why I'm doing that. Oops, I forgot to turn. See, there's my mistake. I'm going to go back and take those stitches out. I'm just going to go back in here, get my turn. I started talking and I just followed that seam over. So let's get back in here. Roll the back tack. And come here, needle down, pivot and turn. And then finish. Thread is caught. There we go. So I'm going to get in here. I'm going to take out those extra seams. And then I'm going to get the backing pieces cut out, and I'll show you that. Okay, so here's the llama pillow piece stitched. You can see the stitching on the back. You can see basically I did 3 concentric rectangles, square-ish. And so now what I'm going to do, I need to trim this down just a little bit. Let me actually just show you. If you go here, and you can see if I put this on top of the pillow, you can kind of gauge, you know, you want your pillow form to be snug. But what I like to do is come in here, and then I can check that midpoint, right? So I can see here, that's about a 5/8 inch. And since this is a, you know, a real seam and sewing, I'm not going to do the 1/4 inch piecing seams like I did for these, like you do with, you know, the quilting kind of patchwork. So I feel like this is actually a pretty good size. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and trim. Actually, I'm going to just trim it and make sure it's squared, though it looks pretty squared. I'm going to make the backing pieces because I think my initial measurements on this were pretty good. So I'm going to get the back pieces cut, and then I'll lay it out. Let me talk you through. Okay, so now let's move on to the back envelope portion. I'm going to share with you how to do that. All right, so I have just put this pillow top on top of my fabric. I'm just using it as a guide for cutting it. Okay. And then now what I'm going to do is I want my backing pieces to overlap because it's going to be envelope style. You could do this with a zipper. You know, you can choose how you want to do it. So what I'm going to do is just fold it in half. Like so. I'm going to use this raw edge as the extra. And I like to overlap my pillows by like 4 inches or so. So this is going to be my overlap area once I put the seam. Actually, I'm going to pull it over a little bit more. So by the time I seam it, I have the 4 inches. And I said I was going to line the backing, but I'm going to skip it on this because this is a nice dark fabric. So it's going to be fine. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come here and cut. And I'm going to cut off this extra. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in and cut this, and I'm going to cut off this extra white fabric at the same time. I'm going to do just one. I forgot. Oh, I got to take that stitching out too. I'll do that before we get started. But let me just get this cut. Okay, I need to fix my mistake here where I accidentally stitched. So let me get the seam ripper, and then I'm going to trim this off. You don't need to see that, but let me just show you here. So with my backing pieces, I'm going to go to the iron. I'm going to leave the raw edge in there because it's going to be covered, and I'm going to do a double fold over just like that. And I'm going to press that down, and I'm going to stitch it, and then I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Okay, so let me get that ironed and stitched. I'm going to get that repaired and trimmed, and then I'll come back to show you how to do the final assembly of this envelope style pillow cover. Okay, so now I'm going to do the final squaring off, trimming down of the pillow. If I look at its measurements, it looks like it's 19 inches wide and 18 inches long, and it needs to be 18 by 18. So I'm going to just come in with my ruler. I'm going to take off a 1/2 inch from both of these sides to get it down to the 18-inch width that it needs to be. And then this is also going to be the time where I am sure that I am squaring this up as much as possible. And then I'm going to sew these. Let me come around so I can do this correctly. Sorry, it's sideways for you guys now, but you get the gist of it. So I'm going to come in here, line that up. And this is something, I mean, it doesn't need to be exact, but I don't want my pillow cover to be too loose so that it's really nice and full. Turn that down. Oops. I need to change my rotary cutter blade. Okay. And now I'm going to put this edge here onto the 18 and then use this to take off the extra little bit on this side. Okay. All right. And I'm going to sew this with a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around, which should take it down to being 17 by 17, which is my pillow form size. And if I do that and I feel like it's a little bit snug, I can always back off the seam allowance some because I am going to also serge my seam. We have this here, and I'm just going to continue to work from the side. I have my pillow pieces, the backing pieces that I have folded over twice and ironed down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this raw edge up with this raw edge. And this is going to be a little bit longer because remember I used the untrimmed pillow as the guide. That's fine. And then I'm going to do this. And I feel like that might be a little bit too much overlap now that I trimmed that down. So actually I'm going to adjust that a little bit. You want to have a good overlap, but you don't want it to be so hard to get into the pillow. So I think that is good. So I have here, this is my overlap. So it's about, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still a bit much. I'm going to take it, I like to have about 4. So I'm going to slide this over a little bit more. Slide that over a little bit more. And I'm just using my grid. You can use a ruler to double check your overlap. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. All right. So now I'm going to stick a pin here in the middle. And then I'm going to actually turn this over. And I'm going to flip it. I'm just pinning this closed. I'm not going to stitch here. This is just while I'm flipping this over. Because what I want is to actually flip this over now and just trim off that excess here. Okay. And this is just because I'm freestyling it. I didn't sit and like, you know, calculate what I need. I'm just freestyling for y'all today. If you're interested in the exact final measurements of everything, let me know. I can provide this. This is more just kind of a freestyle workshop style a little sew along. Basically just showing you the basic principles of assembly. I do have some other, I don't know if they're going to come out before this or after this, but I do have some actual step-by-step pillow making tutorials that I'll be sharing that will show more steps and actual dimensions of cutting. Okay, so I'm going to get these pinned all around the edge, and I'm going to sew all around the edge, all 4 sides. Okay, so I'm going to get that sewn up, and then you know, you can pin as much as you need to. I usually just pin these overlaps here just so they don't move, but you pin as much as you feel like you need to. Okay, all right, so I just did a sample test to make sure my pillow fit before I turned it inside out. It does. I've stitched all the way around. I'm going to just go and serge these edges. Actually, you can see the stitching better on this side. So you see, I just stitched around all 4 sides. I'm going to serge the edges and then trim. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and trim it now. I'm going to cut off the corners so that when I turn it inside out, I can poke that out a little bit better. But I am going to serge this now, just so it is nice looking on the inside. And then when we come back, I will show you what the pillow cover looks like on the pillow foam. All right, friends, look how cute this turned out. Oh my gosh, this is adorable. And then here's the little envelope back. Got that stuff in there, and it fits so nice and snugly, right? Look at that. Look at that. All right, you'll see more at the end. Let me get the second pillow sewn up, and then we will do a little wrap up. Okay, I've been having a lot of fun today sewing up these Farm Friends prints. The collection again is by Mia Charro. I mean, if you or anyone that you know loves animals, love farms, I'm a gardener, soon to be homesteader, and so this collection just really it makes me smile. So anyway, hope you like the pillows. They come together so quickly. I think that they are just adorable. Again, working really well. If it's just, you might have kind of a, you know, country-ish farm theme for your home or your sunroom, even using them outdoors because you can take the cover off and just wash it. But certainly for, like, you know, a little girl's room or something like this, that farm thing would just be something really different and just a lot of fun. So anyway, I hope you like this tutorial on making these pillows. Just like with the quilt, you could fussy cut any other big bold floral or anything you want to you know, create something similar, but not with the Farm Friends themed fabric, right? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, but in the meantime, I'll see you back here on the channel again very soon, and I hope that you have some time to go in your sewing room and make something beautiful today. All right, take good care. Bye.